Okay, infantry is probably the most sizable part of the Empire. You start off with your spearmen as anti-large. Now, large, before we talk about the spearmen, is trolls, manticores, wyverns, dragons, arachnarok spiders, all the big stuff, which, you know, that's what you think of when you think anti-large. What I didn't think of, and most people don't, I know Goo doesn't, anti-large also includes cavalry. Now for spearmen, it's obvious. Oh, spearmen have always been, good against cavalry. Cavalry hate spearmen. But in Warhammer Total War, it now classes them with anti-large. Now when you look at other units such as the Dwarf Slayers, they have anti-large. But you may not think that these tiny half-naked dwarves with axes are going to be very good against cavalry. But they are, because they have anti-large. They also have charge defense against large foes. Let me try and say that again. They have charge defense against large foes, which means you keep these still so they are braced. That charge from these Demigryph Knights, it's going to take a big negation, which can be very useful. And although they are very cheap, I recommend bringing spearmen on builds. It can be seducing in a way to just fill out your army with Greatswords. They're the most expensive unit there. They must be the best, right? That's how things work. Well, they can be beaten quite easily if you know the right counter. And hence this quite long guide, I'm realising now. We're halfway through, and each one's going to be about 20 minutes. So stick in for the rest. Right? Anyway, spearmen, they're quite crappy, but they have their strengths against anti-large. A couple of these with support with other units, and they can take down some of your higher priority units, which is quite funny really, because you get, say, some spearmen and some knights locking some demigryphs, £300, well, English pounds, 300 gold, I suppose, let's make it friendly to everyone, against 1,500, and they can take them down pretty easily with a bit of support. That's quite a nice trade. Of course, you've got the shielded variants. They take a buff to melee defense, and they can have a bit of missile resistance. A little bit of extra gold, but it makes the spearmen that little bit more durable. Then of course you've got your swordsmen. They come in one variant, the swordsmen. They are shielded automatically, sword in one hand, shield in the other. They generic infantry. Not much to say. They're quite good against. What's this button do? Oh, it's a little bit of flavor text. Yeah, they have 90 units. This is sorry, I never explained this from the start. This is the unit size, so there are 90 men in a unit. They can last a while. If they're buffed by one of your wizards, they can be quite useful, and having like a line of them, say about 4, backed up with some spearmen on each side. You lay them out like this on the battle. They can hold it for a while you do cavalry charges and do your other things. So that's the main infantry for your Empire. You then have your Berserker units in the form of the Flagellants. They are high damage dealing units. They have a frenzy ability, which is constant, and if their leadership is lower than 50, they get buffs. They are immune to psychology, they get a better charge bonus, better melee attack, and more damage. So basically, the weaker these units are, the more powerful they're going to be. Which, also coupled with strength of the Penitent, for 15 seconds on their self, if they're in melee and they're losing melee combat, they get plus 12 physical resistance and plus 18 melee defense. Makes them that bit more survivable. They're also unbreakable, so these guys are not going to run from a fight. These are crazed lunatics. You want to send these guys... You don't send these guys in. These guys are running, basically. One thing you want to know, though, 0 armor. So, they're going to go down quickly. But they're going to do a shit ton of damage in the process, so they're quite good for that. Maybe a couple of these in the rear, or in the flanks. Can be quite devastating, but you don't want them to hold somewhere. They're there to do damage. So we'll keep them in. Then you've got your upgraded spearmen in the form of halberdiers. They are basically the same as spearmen in the fact that they are anti-large and they have charged defense against large foes. However, they do armor piercing damage. So those giant demigryph knights, how you needed a spearman and a bit of support, now you'll need halberdiers and a bit of support will clean them up even quicker. And they will clean anti-large units much quicker as well. And if you look at their bonus, they do quite a bit more damage. Well, only a little bit actually, than the spearmen. So 2 spearmen cost the same as a halberdier. So you got to think, you know, you can test them out and see which is which. Generally, I'll go for the spearmen over the halberdiers. Don't know why. Probably a cost thing. And then over that, you've got the Greatswords, the unit of the Empires Infantry. They're armoured, they're armour piercing, they're anti-infantry, which means they're great for taking out dwarves. Because dwarves are armoured, they are all infantry, and they require armour piercing to deal with. So let's have a look at this. So that's 23 damage armour piercing, 8 damage versus infantry. I'll let you do the math there. 31. You know, not hard. Math. I like math. You know, if you have... It depends what you're facing. I say people fill out their army with great swords because they're the most expensive unit. If you're fighting dwarves, yeah, they're going to be good. You'll find someone else that's got a load of armour piercing and not a lot of infantry maybe, and they're not going to do so good. They also have units of renown. If you bought the DLC, you'll have access to these. The Sigmar Sons and the Tatter Souls. The Sigmar Sons are upgraded swordsmen. You get plus 40 leadership, plus 11 melee attack, plus 11 melee defense, plus 2 weapon strength, and plus 6 charge bonus. And on top of that, if that wasn't enough, they are now unbreakable. So these guys are not going to run away in a fight. You can only have one of them, and they are unit rank 9 off the bat. But they are useful for holding somewhere down, especially if they have the right support and are against the right units. Then you've got the Tatter Souls, which are the Beserker, basically. Let's compare them to there. So you get plus 1800 health, plus 10 melee attack, plus 5 melee defense, and plus 10 charge bonus. And they gain quite a bit more men. They gain 30 men. So they're a bit more survivable in the fact that, you know, they just have more men now. More meat to chew through, I suppose. Can be useful. I don't really use these Tatter Souls a lot. I use the Sigmar Sons a lot, though. They're very useful for holding the centre of a battle line. So if you've got, say, a small battle line, you stick them in the centre, they're going to be quite useful. Or if there's a powerful flank, you stick these guys in reserve here. If loads of Black Orcs come around this side, you can go do-do-do. Power that flank a bit up. Oh, shit. Also, if you, while you're doing this and you right click on it, there's a nice little wiki that'll show you. However, all this stuff, you can find it here. You just hover over it, it'll show you an idea. You can work it out in your head, it's not too hard. That brings us to 10 minutes, so we'll go into missile infantry as well. If you can hear the neighbour's dog, I apologise. 5 units. 3 company militia, the cheapest. They're alright in melee and they're alright at range. You know, they're not anything special. They have a great range on them. It's quite short actually. They don't do a lot of range damage either. And it's not very good at armor piercing. So you'll want to throw these against your dwarf warriors, your skeletons, your zombies, your whatchamacallit, your flagellants. You want to throw them against them. They're decent though, they're cheap, and they're weak against armor. Obviously, it says this. You know, everything you need to know. It's in here, basically. I don't know why I'm telling you. Their main attractive quality is they can vanguard deploy. So when you start your battle, you have a specific area you can deploy in. Vanguard deployment, they don't care about that little area. They can go outside it. So they can hide in the trees behind enemy lines. They can sneak up behind. If you've got a supporting general, let's say Balthazar Gelt, because I hate him, say he's at the back casting these spells. To be honest, you don't want to kill him because what's the point? You know, he's worthless anyway. But let's say you want to do the leadership damage to the Empire. You bring these guys down the back, shoot off a bit into his back. He's got no protection back there. 3 company militia. Crossbowmen, good solid artillery. We ain't got there yet. Missile infantry. There are 2 types of missile infantry: the crossbowmen and the handgunners. Crossbowmen are they have good range apparently. Apparently they do. Obviously you want to keep them away from any units. You know, it's just a common staple. You know, you don't want to let your units get into close combat with your missile infantry, but they have good base damage, which means they're good against the unarmoured units. So things like your infantry, like your goblins, your standard spearmen, your unarmoured horses, giants, they're very good against. You know, a couple of units of crossbowmen, a couple of volleys into a giant, they can bring that thing down pretty quickly. So it's good to have a good line of crossbowmen, I'd say. And you can pretty much deal with everything. However, what about against the armoured units, you ask? That's where the handgunners come in. Bit more expensive, but only by a smidge. You gain armour piercing damage. So these are good against your Ragnarok spiders, your lords. They can be very good against. Their range isn't as good as the crossbowmen, but you know, it's a price you pay for dealing with those high armoured units. Then you've got your special units of renown, the Sterling's Revenge 3 Company Militia and the Silver Bullets Handgunners. Starting with the militia, let's get rid of these for a second so I can check. So basically, the regular 3 Company Militia, they're not good against armour. These ones are. They boast 14 armour piercing damage, which I believe is equal to handgunners. 16, 14, so it's a little less than the handgunners, a little bit more expensive, but what you're paying for essentially is the decent melee. So if these things get charged by, let's say, some light cavalry, they can do alright, you know. They might need a little bit of support, say like two units of them on 1 skirmish cav, they'll be alright. The vanguard deployment, that you're also paying for that, and you're also paying for stalk. Now what stalk does is they can move hidden in any terrain within, you know, they can't like walk up to the enemy and like slap them on the ass. They have to be, you know, within certain distance, but they can move hidden, which means you can move them around into position, move them between tree lines in the distance, and they won't get seen, which is very useful. You've also got the Silver Bullets, compared to the regular ones. They also have stalk, which is insane because they do magical damage. Does it say how much magical damage they do? No, it does not. It just does it. And of course they've got that armor piercing damage. They have an extra 2 points of armor piercing damage, which can stack, you know. But, you know, you're paying for the stalk. That's what you're paying for. Just gonna hide around, get into position, and then unload on the target. And that's pretty much your range capabilities. You've got a bit of something for everything. You know, you got your anti-armor, your anti-reg healer, I guess you should say. And you got your riffraff Vanguardy ones, which is nice. Next we'll go into cavalry. And if we've got time we'll go into artillery. And that wraps up the Empire.